Okay, so anyway, 40 years ago, I helped to actually found the Athenaeum School of the Arts. And before that, most people know me for my figures, but before that, I worked at the Natural History Museum. And I thought that the best way for me to start this demo is to give you a little bit of a history uh, about my pilgrimage, and then maybe go into a little bird anatomy, and then go into actually demonstrating some things. I also like it to be interactive. So if you can maybe either chat with Liz, or if it's okay with her, I don't mind if you ask me questions as I'm working, because I do not mind being interactive. So with all that being said, let me go ahead and share my screen. Uh, let's see. Can you see this okay?
That's perfect.
Great. Okay, well, this is young Ken, age 5. So young Ken and my brother Robert, some of you might know, he's much more active. I don't really do social media, but he does. Anyway, he's an artist. All 3 boys were artists, and my mom was an artist. So for me, this nest, hooded oriole nest, got me started on loving birds. And I was probably only 5 years old, and my dad got me a Roger Torrey Peterson field guide, which really established it for me. And so let's fast forward to 1972. And these are some of my early paintings before I went to San Diego State, and where I majored in art and minored in ornithology. And then I focused on painting in 1973. These are some examples. This was one of my first murals. I did this with my brother, and it's not really a mural. It's only 8 feet tall. I think of murals as being larger, but being a surfer for a long time, this was a natural evolution for me to start painting waves and birds. So everything was birds at the beginning. And here's a couple of murals that I did with my brother. They're contrasting murals in a restaurant called Wildflowers. So one is more of the meadow riparian area, and anyway, that's what I was doing. And then this is an example of some of my early watercolors when I first started doing them. And I really didn't do anything other than birds from probably 1970 to 1978. Uh, I got very involved in the environment with the egg thinning of the pelicans and the ospreys, and I started banding birds and worked with other ornithologists to try and track what was happening. And then in 1974, I got a job at the Natural History Museum based on my portfolio of birds. They saw I could draw, and that's where I learned how to do dioramas. And I started painting murals and did graphics. And then because uh, they were sending all their birds out to a place called Lyons in O'Haver, and it just cost them an arm and a leg. And I already knew how to skin out birds for scientific purposes, where you put them in shelves, but I didn't know how to put them together. I apprenticed myself to a local taxidermist, and I said, I'll skin out your ducks if you show me how to mount them. And that is really how I learned how to put the birds into lifelike positions. And since I already had been painting birds for probably most of my life, I was able to put them into creative positions. So these are just a few of the birds I did for the Natural History Museum. And now they have a whole loan collection based on a lot of these birds that are under plastic cases and can be checked out by classrooms. This is one of my first major murals for the San Diego Zoo. It's 22 feet long, and it's the Pesquet parrots in a New Guinea jungle scene. And then after I left the Natural History Museum, which was in spring, I had my first show that was local. And then this is a little bit further along, 1978. This was my first professional exhibition in a real gallery, I should say. And this was the cover of it. And you can see I aged a little bit, but had more hair than I have now. And these are some of the wood carvings I was doing at the time. So what I would do is I would borrow my birds back and make wood carvings out of them and then give the birds back to the museum. And these are examples of gouache watercolors. They're not, well, it's when I started working with white in transparent watercolor, this was what came out. Rather than using gouache, because I didn't like the way they cracked when they dried, I just started adding white to my transparent watercolors, and I was able to treat them like gouache. So moving along, this is the bird. This is an example of a painting that was collected by the San Diego Museum of Fine Art. They specifically bought it to hang next to this diving merganser by Harnett, which I was really pleased about. And they had a show where they did that, and it was really neat to be one of the only living artists in an exhibition in a museum. But these are some of my early bird paintings, and then this is I got so involved in wood carving, I was picked up by Hammer Galleries in New York, and this one took a year. And you can see that everything is based on my diorama techniques. So all of this is fake. You know, the leaves are taken off of live oaks, dried up, repainted, and reattached to fake stems. And the bird is completely carved out of wood. And it just took a while, and I decided, I'm not really into this. And so in the middle of a very successful career at Hammer Galleries, I told them I had to leave, and I decided to spend all my energy on my painting. So this is a book I did for the zoo called Birds of Prey. And this was a big project. This particular page was very popular with adults, but the kids were frightened of it. And so they ended up taking it out of the book. So if you ever pick this book up now, you won't see this particular page. But it's interesting to get these close-ups. I would borrow my taxidermy birds back, and I would borrow a talon because they had examples, for instance, of the talon of an owl, which you can see two go backwards and two go forwards. And I basically just put this together, just to the best of my ability. In doing this page for the anatomy of the osprey, I confess that I used a chicken for for this part. But this part, based on what I know about birds, is my own deduction from what a chicken looks like. I mean, whoever really can see an osprey that has been skinned, you just don't see that. And then Desert Magazine saw my zoo books and contracted me to do a series on the Roadrunner. And this is a watercolor, and then these are scratchboard. I don't know if you've ever worked in scratchboard. It's really fun. You coat clayboard with India ink and you scratch into it or paint into it. And then the Audubon Society saw those, and this led to me being, this is all volunteer work. I worked for the San Diego chapter of the Audubon Society, and I did all of their covers in scratchboard. These are just a couple examples. And then being the curious type that I am, I decided to get involved in a technique of painting that was developed by Rudolf Steiner. It's called veiled watercolors. And I traveled back to Europe and learned a technique of using color where you begin with an abstraction and only bring in subject matter toward the end. And so this whole series, which I did from 1980 to about 1984 is based on starting out with just movements of color and limited palette. Like this is a burnt sienna, viridian, and magenta palette. And then this one is carmine and turquoise and neutral tint. So it's a fascinating technique. It takes a while because it's composed of glazes. But after doing a bunch of these paintings, I decided to I wanted to go back to my regular painting, but I wanted to loosen up my brushwork. So I got involved in sumi-e. And I did this sort of work for about 4 years, starting with a Japanese instructor and ending with a Chinese instructor. And I really loved it, and it really loosened up my brushstroke. This is an example of one of my paintings after doing sumi-e for quite a while. So moving on, I still sketched all the time. These are sketches from life of hummingbirds at a feeder. And then these are some of my interpretations. These are probably don't take much longer than, probably about 10, 15 minutes, but I guess that's 10 or 15 minutes plus about 25 years of experience at the time. Actually, I just did these pretty recently, so I would have to say it's more like 50 years of experience. And then this is an example of wet into wet as we begin to do demonstrations. I'm sure you're all watercolors, so you know all about this, and I am not trying to talk down to you at all. I'm just describing my particular process. Then this is based on thumbnails taken from a trip to Colombia, and I will use a lot of these little studies for larger paintings. Here you can see how I don't know if you're familiar with the cock of the rock, but it's an amazing bird. And I was so intrigued by the way just this little beak sticks out of all these feathers. And so I did some deep research on the internet. And this is what their skulls look like any other bird. But you can see how the feathers, the lores, just flare out over everything. So this is a page basically of cock of the rock. And anyway, in the South American trip, I also went to Peru. And these are some Peruvian boobies where I stylized a little bit. And this is a tribe of house sparrows outside of our house that I took a picture of in a banana grove. And thinking that it needed a little extra design element, I added these bubbles because I like the idea of echoing the shapes of the birds to a certain extent. And this is this is a painting based on one of my favorite poems is A Psalm of Life. And being a framer, I was able to build asymmetrical frames. And so this is kind of a self-portrait. You know, it's probably how I imagine I'll be when I get older. It would probably be feeding birds, but I'm not there yet. I'm only 76. And anyway, let's go to the way I teach. Some of you have taken, well, not some of you, I know Liz has taken figure drawing classes from me, and the way I teach figure is pretty much the way I teach bird drawing is I like to really concentrate on volume. So you can see here how when I think of a bird, I don't just think of a flat shape. I convert shapes into forms. So you can see here I have a very strong bottom plane, and then I have a side plane and a top plane. And I like to have my students really try to think that way before they paint. And then you then begin to add cross-hatching almost as an underpainting. And then watercolor can be added on top. And that way you get more of a sense of volume. And whether you work very, fairly tight like this or loose, I think it gives you an idea of what you need to know to be able to get a really solid rendering. I have one of my books is called Charcoal Drawing, and this is an example of working on toned paper. And this is the tutorial showing how everything I do, I'm thinking of spheres and blocks and cylinders. So here you can see that I'm the idea, for instance, of the ear areas. I'm working over the ear, trying to get this roundness. And this area, all of this area in here is going to be paper. And so the only place I'm going to touch the top lighting is on the top plane of the features. So you can see very clearly, these are the contours of the beak. And this is what a beak actually looks like. And here is the light. This is going to be paper. This is going to be light that's a little darker, and then you have more paper, and then you get into your darkest darks. So this was for a charcoal drawing, but the same holds true for watercolor. And this is the final. So you can see everything I was talking about. All of this, these halftones are just paper showing through. And a lot of times I actually do my watercolors this way too. I have a whole set of techniques that I use where I, rather than working on white watercolor paper, I work on toned paper and just let the paper show through as much as I can. Anyway, about tonight's demonstration. These are some drawings I did during my last bird class at the San Diego Watercolor Society. And one of the things that I think is really interesting that a lot of people didn't know about is why birds' necks look the way they do, and why is the neck of herons and egrets so different from everything else. And so I thought tonight I would focus on herons. Actually, egrets and herons are classified. Usually you think of the great egret as being an egret and the great blue heron a heron, but they're actually, everything is considered a heron. So just to clear things up from the start. So this is they're actually, they used to be called common egrets, but it's a great heron. And a lot of people now say it's the white phase of the great blue heron. But when you look at the outstretched neck like this of other birds like swans and flamingos, storks, you don't really see them flying like this with a scrunched up neck. And that's because the heron, as look at, this is the neck here, they have about 25 cervical vertebrae versus, mammals. Every mammal has 7 cervical vertebrae. Sloths and sloths and manatees have 6 cervical vertebrae. Giraffes have 7, like we do. But birds are different. They have anywhere from probably 8 to 25. Swans have about 24 or 25. Egrets have about that many. So you can see all of this going on in their neck. The unique thing is between 7 and 5 on the 6th cervical vertebrae, there's a strong ligament and there's a notch that creates their distinctive S shape. So when they are hunting, they start with a very erect posture when they're searching for their prey. But you can see this oddity right here of the upper vertebrae. That's because all of this is being stretched out. Because now he's looking, and you can, if you know much about birds, they can actually look down. Herons in particular, their eyes are situated to where they're almost binocular vision. But notice how the head is slightly cocked. That's how they look. Then they retract. And then when they see something, they sling out, grab it, and retract. And what's interesting is this is called a woomera in Aboriginal terms, and it's called an atlatl in Aztec terms. And it's a way that the Aztecs used a spear, and the Aborigines in Australia still do. They attach a sling to the end of their spears and hang a rock on it. And so when they cast their spears, they can go further and faster. And so, Liz, one of the things I'm going to ask is, I'm going to send you the PDFs I'm using tonight. And if you can send those out to anybody who watches this and is interested, so they can really follow everything I'm talking about tonight. And
Okay,
yeah, that would be really great because I know I'm moving a little fast. I know that there's, time is of the essence. So that would be
yeah,
great if you can do that. I've got two PDFs and I just want to,
okay,
um, no, that's okay. Okay, so anyway, this is part of the process that I'll use. Sometimes I'll take a photograph and I'll translate it into charcoal and I'll work out a design. And these are my little thumbnail studies. And then when I develop something into a painting, this is an example of light against dark or dark against light. And there's different ways to do it. And I think it's good to know that you can be this simple in doing birds, or you can just do something like this that's more decorative. So with that, I want to go into one more sharing of, let me see, let's go into this. So these are things that, you should know as you're dealing with birds. And so this is, generally speaking, this is a pretty standard skeleton. As an ornithologist and as a taxidermist, I deal with this all the time. But a lot of people, when they do paint birds, they don't get this part right or this part because they don't realize just how the feathers come out of the beak. So that's a little something. And then the important thing to know is there's always a hump, which is the crop. And if you ever see pigeons picking just at dirt, that's because they're getting gravel. And actually, all birds that eat seeds are getting gravel because they have a lot of gravel in their gizzards, which they then help to digest their seeds as it goes down through their digestive tracts. When you are drawing a bird, you want to think mostly of an egg shape because that's really what they're like. Ignore anatomical complexities and just concentrate on the egg. Really, this is the only part of the leg that shows, and I'll explain why. So if you look at this, you can see in comparative anatomy, their knee is well inside of their bodies, just like horses and cows and most every other animal, except for maybe elephants show a little bit of knee. Bears can show knee, but the ankle is way down here, and they're basically walking on their toes, the same way horses are basically on their toes. If you look at your own hand, hold your hand up for a second and look at your thumb. Your thumb is also the same. They have a fixture called the allula right here. And this is their radius and ulna, which is equivalent to our forearm. And here is their humerus. So they even have a scapula, and their wishbone is like our clavicle. So to get a little clearer, if you were to try to walk like a bird, this is what you would look like. And it's good to know if you're going to do birds, because you have to know that this area right here, this is the where the secondaries are. This is the uh, radius and ulna, and all the secondaries attached to the ulna. And this is the carpo. These are the carpal bones. It's called carpus carpals, and it's where the primaries begin, and they go all the way out, and you have the phalanges are actually the primary feathers. So we already went over this. If you were to try and walk like a bird, this is what your anatomy would have to look like. And perching birds have a tendon that actually goes back behind their heel. And when they are standing upright, it is very relaxed, but the minute they put their weight down, it automatically closes, which is why they can sleep so easily on a small perch. So when you get this PDF later on, you'll see what I'm talking about in a much more close up. So this is equivalent of a human hand to a bird's hand. This is really important to know when you're drawing feathers. The feathers overlap in a really special way. So this is a bottom view, and you see how the feathers overlap underneath. So when a bird is pushing down, they hold together really tight like this. But then on the other hand, when a bird pulls up, it opens up like vents and allows the air to go through them. So that's really important to know about. And you can look at this a little bit closer later, but this shows how the feathers actually fold. Now we have our pectoralis major, and one of the reasons Leonardo da Vinci wasn't able to get humans to fly was because we don't have a big sternum like this. Birds do, and so their pectoralis muscles are way down where they can get a lot of traction. So when they pull down, it pulls down on their humerus, and that's where they get their push. And then there's another muscle that pulls up called the supracoracoideus, and that's how they get pull. So when they push down, do you see all the pressure on the bottom? Yet the wings are holding tight because they need that lift. On the upstroke, everything opens. And the names of the birds, the topography. So if we're talking about things, you have, the crown, the lores, the auriculars. The auriculars just refers to the ear part. You have the back, all the different parts. So, and then if you do decide to get interested, when I send you the link, this is, you can take a look at my book, Essential Human Anatomy for Artists, which came out in 23 and has a lot of the anatomy if you're interested in knowing more about it. So with that, I am going to go ahead and stop my share. And before I go to the next phase, ask if there are any questions.
I'm just thinking of all the birds that I painted. And I was just looking at them, just the shapes. I didn't know anything about the anatomy.
Well, what do you think? Do you think it would be helpful?
Oh my goodness, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes a difference. So I'll try to talk about that. It was hard for me to decide what to do tonight. I almost thought I should just open it up and let people ask me what to paint, because that's the way I conduct my bird workshops. I usually ask people to email me images that they want to work on in the class beforehand, and I put them into my iPad. I have a special program called Art Studio, and I can actually work on it and show them how I would approach it. And then during class, I got to be careful just to ask for one thing to send to me. Otherwise, because the classes usually have about 22 people here in San Diego, and I demonstrate whatever they ask me to demonstrate, but that would be a free for all tonight. So I decided to concentrate on egrets and the egrets next.
Oh, yes, yes. I love them.
Because that's a kind of a focus. So anyway, your name is Pamela?
Yes.
Yeah, anyway, I hope that's helpful. Is there anybody else? Because I'd like to keep it pretty interactive.
There's a question as to whether you still do wood carvings.
Good question. No.
Okay.
Yeah, the wood carving, situation, when I was done with that, I was done with it, but I still have one or two of them. It's interesting. They were so popular and I could have made such a good livelihood. But it's just so much work. I decided the best part of wood carving was when I painted the birds afterwards. So, when you see the wood carving in my PDF, you'll realize that that entire bird was painted with oil paints. And before I did that, I put a coat of gesso on it and took a wood burner and burned texture into all the feathers. I mean, it takes so much time. You can't even imagine.
So there's another question. Is there any hints for capturing birds when you're painting plein air?
Oh yeah. A camera? No. No, I would say, why don't I kind of demonstrate that a little bit, show you how I
Okay.
gesture in a bird? Because I guess what I would recommend is, because every plein air painting, at least for me, I start outside, but I finish in my studio. And whether I work from photographs I take afterwards or not, if I'm doing people or doing birds or other animals, I like to have reference. So I would say that if you're trying to include a bird in a painting, one thing, like if you're at the zoo, birds are very habitual. If the bird is perched in one area, if you stay there long enough, they're going to come back. They're going to fly away. They're going to defend their territory. They're going to go from spot to spot, and they're going to come back. So you can, if you're patient, you can do it that way. But better yet is snap a shot. So yeah, I'll show you how I gesture out birds first. Let's see, is there anybody else?
Nope, just a
Oh,
thank you.
okay, so how much time do I have?
You have till 9 o'clock, an hour and 15 minutes.
Okay, good. Does anybody need to take a break while I set up, or are we good to go?
Now you're good to go.
Okay, so let's see. Let me change my view. Let's see, we don't want that one. Can you see this okay? Let me just change the. Okay, so these are a couple of things I played around with today. Are any of you familiar? I can't really talk to you because you're not going to answer me, but are you familiar with the Itoya double-headed calligraphy pen that comes in? I usually like to use black, but it comes in color too. And they they look like this. They have a small side and they have a thick side.
Like a tumbo.
It's like a Tombow, yeah, but it's called a double header. It's really a nice calligraphy pen, but I seldom use it for that. So for quick sketches, I like to use these, and I use these for my figure drawing gestures quite often. The reason I like them is you can either use water or you can use one of these water pens.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like me to demonstrate how I do that?
Yes,
Mhm.
please.
Okay, so I'll start with that. And before I do that, let me just show you. I normally just go right into, I just go into it with the pen. I don't really sketch out first. And I'll talk a little bit about what I think about when I draw, because my whole thing about drawing is really learning how to see negative shapes and how to visually get correct angles. I think everything about drawing is mostly about negative shapes and correct angles. So if I take my time, I can usually figure things like that out. But let's go ahead and let me see if there's a better image for me to do right now. Let's see what I have here. Um,
So, can you spell the name of that pen again? It's
yes,
ITA.
it's Itoya, Itoya, and I
Okay,
should be a representative for them.
okay.
Let's see. Let's go ahead and let's do this bird. Okay. So I'm going to I'm going to go back up to it and find it in my own thing, so I have something to work on. Okay, so for those of you who were curious about how I gesture in something first, so I'm going to go. This is, by the way, this is called this is a Nero black lead by Cretacolor. And I can send a link to all of my supplies too when I send that. So, you know, you can have all of the information at your hand. But what I like about this one, it's a combination of oil and charcoal, and it works really well with watercolor for some reason. It's very strange, but I like it because it's big and I can get quick strokes with it. So uh, if you look at this bird, if I want to get a really quick idea, I just start by getting a really good idea of the angle of the beak. And I stay with straights at the beginning. And as in figure drawing, I like to think mostly in terms of a silhouette first. So I get the biggest shape possible that I can. And if it's not 100% correct, that's fine. I can make my refinements. And as I always tell my students, don't try to make it perfect, just make it better and better. And that way you kind of get out of the habit of thinking, oh, I can't do it. This is too hard. All of that's inner talk that we do. So that's probably all I would need. And I would probably be able to take that home and do something with it. So are there any questions so far?
No.
Okay,
No.
I'm gonna go ahead and flesh this out a little bit. And I'm just gonna show you what I would do if I were looking at what I had. I'm gonna go ahead and just start with straight lines, and I'm going to go ahead and draw out this little negative shape right here. And I'm drawing a little darker than I normally would. And I'm just going to consider this a nice curve. And see, when I look at this, I'm going to, relatively speaking, I'm just saying, okay, well, this does something like this. You know, I'm just looking at shapes. I'm not thinking of form at all right now, form being three-dimensional shape. So now I come back over and I'm going up this way. So I have a pretty good sense already of what I'm dealing with. Now, if I get this negative shape correct, what is that going to allow me to do? It's going to allow me to look over here and get this shape correct, just based on this. And that's true when I'm doing, whether I'm drawing fingers or drawing arms or whatever it is I'm drawing. That's the secret to getting that. So now I'm going to continue up. I'm copying this angle and I'm going to come down this way. And you can see that my initial angle of the beak was completely incorrect. So I'm just going to go ahead and correct it. And I'm coming down here. And let's go ahead and put it in something like this. This is also an important thing to do, is you're constantly dropping plumb lines. And as I draw here, I'm trying to see, well, what does that line up with horizontally? And may do that visually, but I see that it lines up right about here. So that's how I think of my initial drawing. And I'm going to just go ahead now and take that down as far as I need to. And so I consider this a shape. I don't consider it a form yet. So I'm just going to go ahead. I couldn't see before that these went all the way down here, so I'm just going to correct that. See, right again, once again, I'm looking at this little negative shape right here. And I'm going to pull down. heel and come down. And then we can see that we have little ovals in here. Okay, so as far as dealing with this part now, once again, I'm looking at the negative shape in here. I'm going to go ahead and erase a little bit of my initial drawing. And I'm just going to go ahead and put this in. And since we're looking at the top of his head a little bit, the eye is going to be down a little bit lower like that. And the mouth goes right underneath like this. And then you can see there's the bottom of the beak like that. Okay, so now I think the head is a little bit large. So I'm just going to go ahead and make a correction before I get started. The most important thing I think in my drawing classes is I really try to get people to relax. Because if you are tensed up and thinking that everything you do has to be entered into a show and get an award, sorry. Okay, so there, if I were to do reflections, they'd be in here, and there's a little sense of plumes in here. So let's go ahead and see what happens if we play around with a little bit of watercolor. And that I'm not forgetting to deal with the Itoya, so I haven't forgotten. Are there any thoughts or questions as I get ready to start here?
Not yet.
Okay, you're a very quiet group. So one of the things about doing something like this, there's always a danger of getting things too edgy, you know, where you're too cut out. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and start with, I'm going to go ahead and violate a shape right here. I'm going to go right through. I'm going to get hard edged up here. So I can always know that I can violate that. Can you guys see okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay, great. And if I were doing something like this heron, it would be different.
So what type of paper are you painting on?
Oh, it's Arches, 140.
Okay. Rough, cold press?
No, it's cold press. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So for the shadow, I'm going to go ahead and mix up a little bit of burnt sienna, a little bit of ultramarine blue. I just want to have a little bit ready here for some of my darks.
What brand of paints do you use?
Whatever brand I win in a contest.
Okay.
I go
That's a
by
good
the,
answer.
yeah, because I haven't bought paints for so long, and you know, if I get any kind of award at all, I'm always pretty happy to win maybe a sheet of, you know, like 300-pound arches or something like that. I love those kinds of awards. So yeah, I'm sorry I can't answer that, but
Okay.
I think that I go by the pigment numbers, you know, the PV number. Like this, I've got some quinacridone right here, which I used. This is like quinacridone rose, which I used to replace Schminke, and it's PV. It's pigment violet number 19. And if I know that, I can look at any brand and it should be pretty much the same. So let me go ahead and I'm going to mix a little bit of shadow color, which is going to be a little bit of a mixture of yellow ochre, and I've got cerulean blue. And you notice how I always wipe my brush out or use this Kleenex. And then I'm going to take a little bit of this color I'm discussing with you right now and get that out there. So for starters, I'm going to go ahead and put down the blue right wherever I think there should be a nice shadow. It's going to bleed out. Go ahead and put a little bit down here. All the way down here. And work my way up. And then I'm going to inject just a little bit of the pink and a little bit of the yellow ochre. And that's a way of graying things down without without making them look like they're just right out of the tube. Now, while this is still wet, I'm going to go ahead and mix a little bit of, I'm going to just take some of this green here and mix it with a little bit of my ultramarine blue and a touch of burnt sienna. I'm going to leave a little gap there. Sorry about the hand. I'm going to darken this up just a little bit. Because I used pencil first, there's a cloudiness to everything, but I can get rid of that easy enough. This is just a vignette. Vignette meaning that I'm just, it's going to be part of the design of this page. Now, they have such dark legs. I'm just going to go right through the legs on this one. And I'm going to add a little more green back in here. I use a neutral tint sometimes. I don't know if you've ever tried it. It's a really interesting color. It's like a warm. So warm, like Davy's gray has a lot of blue in it, and this doesn't. It's more of a warm tone.
So what brush are you using?
Oh, it's Richardson number 12. Steve Quiller gave me this palette. We were roommates at Canuga, and he also gifted me a bunch of his brushes. He's such a good guy. Okay, so now I'm just going to go ahead and use a little bit more water and just run this down.
So do you have a favorite brush?
I like rounds like this quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Do you?
I use both rounds and flats, depending on the rounds hold more fluid and more water than a flat one does.
Yeah. Well, the flats are nice for getting into edges, though.
Yes.
Sure, everybody has their favorite. So what I'm doing now is I'm just, since I know it's just a vignette, I'm just trying to make it kind of interesting. Let's see, we'll have a reflection. I'm going to go ahead and put those dark legs in right now, even though it's wet. If my pigment is dense enough, I should be okay. You know, it shouldn't bleed too much. I don't have to show every, well, no pun intended, every feather. And so this back leg being receding a little bit, I'm going to add just a little bit of coolness to it. I'm going to add a little more blue right through here. And I'm going to come in with a little bit of this pencil again while it's wet and just delineate areas that I think need it. And I'm going to come in with my kneaded eraser and take away a little bit of this pencil. And here, had I not been demonstrating gesture first, I wouldn't have done that. But this is a demonstration after all. Now, while this is still wet, I can add, let's see, just bring a little bit of this warmth in that I see. I think it's kind of, there's something nice about it, you know, especially against the green.
So what color is that?
That was a little bit of cadmium red and burnt sienna.
Okay.
But, you know, mixing with the green, it's going to become burnt sienna. When I do something like that, I like to, you know, introduce a little bit of complement to it too. And then let's see, let me take this green down a little further. This is where I'm going to bring my flat in here. I didn't rehearse anything, so just bear with me. I kind of liked when I do demos to go off the seat of my pants. A little bit of water just to blend it out a little bit more. See. Just a little bit of lifting. The nice thing about watercolor is so forgiving.
Mm-hmm.
Just a little bit of indication of the darkness of the wings. Okay, let's get that beak in now. Is my palette big enough for you guys to see nicely?
Yeah, we can
Okay.
see it.
Great. And am I close enough?
You're
And that's
fine.
great. I'm getting ready to do a series of online courses, and so your feedback would be welcome. Now I'm just gonna add a little bit of orange to that while it's still wet. See, if this was a snowy egret, I would come in and make yellow legs, but it's not. Let's see. I'm gonna put a little bit of dark up there. Actually, a little bit of ultramarine blue, green. Just a little texture. Just because it's closer to the focal point, I just want to darken a little bit in there. A little bit of a lost edge on the neck. So that's a vignette. Okay, for a demo. Let's see. Are there any questions so far?
No, people are just commenting on how much they appreciate your setup and
Oh,
that your palette is so visible. So,
oh, that's great to hear.
yeah,
That's actually what I was hoping to hear, is to get some feedback. But
yeah.
okay, so getting back to the egret, you see the special neck that he has? You won't find that in any other bird. You know, shoe bills and things like that, they're actually in the heron family, so they have that too. But so let me go ahead and um, take this off and put a new piece of paper on. And maybe I'll turn it this way. This is so different. Usually I'm doing portraits of people. Takes so
Mhm.
much longer. Okay. Are there any suggestions?
No, we're all I'm enjoying this. I hope the rest of the audience is too.
They can talk. Okay. Let me,
That's in the affirmative.
okay, let me look for something else to do. Um, to switch over.
Is your paper at an angle, on a board on an angle?
Yes,
Okay,
yes. It's probably, I'd say, probably a 25 to 30 degree angle.
good.
When I do
You're
figure
gonna do
water,
an owl? Somebody's asking.
I'd have to look for one. Uh, because I kind of thought I was going to just focus on egrets.
Yeah, just stick to that.
Well, wait a second. Wait a second. Let's just look at what I have in here. I have these. I mean, I could do the quail and the osprey head from these drawings. Would you like to see that?
Um,
No?
I'd like to see a roadrunner, but
A roadrunner.
yeah, we have a lot of them near where I live.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what. If I did it, it wouldn't be the detailed type, but let me go back to my drawings of the roadrunner and work from one of those. How does that sound?
If it's okay with everyone.
The only
there's a
problem is
question about painting eagles.
I've got an eagle head. Let me share my screen for a second. Well, I'll tell you what. Before I go further, let me demonstrate the Itoya pen technique because we did talk about that. So let's do let's do this guy.
Okay.
Can you see my cursor when I do this?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, let's do the heron. I did one earlier, and that would be good because I can, talk a little bit about how I draw it when I'm drawing it. So yeah, that sounds good. Okay, let's go back to
What size are your typical paintings now? They vary?
are you talking about the murals or the
Well, no, a painting you were gonna enter in a show or sell.
usually a half or full sheet?
Okay.
Yeah. What I've been doing lately, and people can see it on my website if you go under my acrylic section. I take 300-pound watercolor paper and prime it with a middle tone of gesso.
Hmm.
Some kind of maybe a value 6, which is a little bit lighter than a middle tone, and then I work on that with acrylics. And
Oh,
I especially like doing landscapes that way. Uh, so yeah, if you go to my website and go to the acrylic section, you'll see uh, several landscapes, and they'll say acrylic, and those are full sheet watercolor paper. And I like to do those because they're eligible to enter into watercolor exhibitions, and they're not that big to work on. But usually when I'm doing a mural, of course, I'm working much larger. And if you go into the section on uh, public works, healthcare and public work, you'll see some of the murals at the different hospitals that are 25 feet long by 9 feet tall. And I do those 4 times smaller. So I can work off of a roll of watercolor paper. And then when that's done, they get scanned at a really high resolution and enlarged onto vinyl wallpaper, and they're applied that way. And that saves the hospital money and it saves me time. Anyway, okay.
and
Yes.
there's a question about the name of your pencil that you used for the drawing. That was by Cretacolor, right? But what do you call?
Cretacolor. Yeah, Cretacolor.
Is it
And
a?
when I send the PDFs, I'll send my supply list too.
Okay, it's a Cretacolor pencil.
It's called Nero Black. It's a large pencil and you buy it with a holder.
Okay, and it's called again a
Nero Black. Nero fiddled while Rome burned.
okay.
And this
N-E.
Nero.
Okay.
See, this is the lead. It goes into this holder. And then to sharpen it, I use rough sandpaper and I just hold it on end.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Got it. Thank you. That was just the question that came up.
Yeah. So talking about these watercolor, water soluble itoyas, they come in different colors. I normally just use the black for figure drawing because I really like the way it ends up looking. But lately I've been enjoying the turquoise. I'm not sure how light fast it is my only issue. It says acid-free ink. That doesn't say anything about the whether it's fugitive or not, but it is acid-free, whatever that's worth to you. But the black I have done in the past, and I've seen paintings that have sold. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this heron in black, and I'm going to go ahead and just start without pencil this time, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
Okay, so well, the first thing I do is I want to get a rough idea of how much space I'm going to be able to allow myself, and I'm going to allow about like that much. And if I'm just looking to see where I think the middle of this bird is, and I'm just going to take a measurement because I just want to get an idea. And so from the top of his head to the top of that black mark is about the same as where the feet touch the water. Some of you might want to play around with that. Just look at it and you'll see. And I just lucked out on that because I think that's pretty handy to know that's what I'm dealing with when I start drawing. So once again, the importance of plumb lines. I'm going to go ahead and start right here with a beak, but this is going to be a little bit more indelible. So I'm working light. I'm just kind of thinking more in terms of kind of dot to dot. Now I'm going to divide this in half. Let's see how I did there. Pretty good. Pretty good. Okay, so knowing that that's my black mark right there is really helpful because then I can put this part of the back on. I can say the back is going to go here and the front is going to go right there. See, it's kind of like putting a puzzle together for me. And once I do that and I have this black mark, I can hold my pencil upright. And I see that if I hold it upright, this black mark lines up with the back of his neck. So I'm going to go make a little mark right there. And so what that just did was it just gave me a hint of where to start the neck. And so I'm going to go down. And it's not easy, you know, as I'm doing this, I'm just estimating things. I'm coming down and I see a gentle C curve here. And I think that's going to get me into the ballpark. And so once I see that, I just kind of go across and I go like this. And I said this was the front, and it turns out it is the front. Okay, so now I've got the top of the head, and I'm going to go ahead and draw the bottom. And as I'm doing this, I'm looking at all these negative shapes. I can't tell you how big I am on negative shapes. Now I see that the angle was wrong here. So I'm going to go ahead and correct that. And I'm going to pull this in. I'm not worried about these overdrawing because, well, you'll see once I start adding water. Okay, so now I come here and I want to figure out, well, where does that little black mark go? And the crown is a little bit free. And I'm going to just draw that shape. Fill that in. And then that tells me where the eye is going to go. I'm going to switch to the smaller side. It's really a good pen. And then one of the things that's important to know about egrets is the mouth goes right underneath the eye. I mean, they have a really big gape. Have you ever seen egrets or great blue herons going after gophers?
No.
Oh my God, it's a thing of beauty. They just wait patiently. And gopher, they wait patiently, but not patiently enough. Puts his head up and plunk. And the heron just swallows the whole thing live.
Oh my God.
Am I grossing you out? I'm going to pull this in a little bit here. Okay, so that's for now. That's all I'm going to do here. Now I'm going to come back down to the body. So sometimes it's fun to, just to see what you can do, just working, just trying to work by eye. Makes it more engaging. Okay, so let's go down. Gonna follow this S curve, pick up this angle. And by the way, if you were studying with me, I don't make people draw like I do. Pencil is fine. I'm just doing this to make it interesting for myself. Now, if I run a plumb line up from where the legs start, like the front leg in particular, it pretty much lines up with this hump. So I'm going to drop a plumb line and I'm going to go ahead and start this leg right here. And then this one, I'm looking at this little negative shape. It's like a little triangle right in through here. And this one comes down like this. And it actually goes down a little bit further because I think what's happening is the left leg is being lifted right now. So it appears to be further back, but the knees, I mean, not the knees, the heels are exactly in the same place. Aren't you glad I went through that anatomy so you know that when I call this a heel, that I'm not going crazy? So we have something like this so far. Let's see, I'm going to come up a little bit right here. These are the secondaries, by the way. it really does help to know the things that I'm talking about. These are the tertiaries up here. I didn't really go over the anatomy that well with you because I knew I was going to send it to you. We'll just go like this for now. So this is where I'll come in with slightly heavier lines just to make things interesting. And let's go ahead and these are really good for plein air sketching too, because you can really get quick effects. Now this side is almost out of ink, so that's why it's so light. Really, it should come out like that. But I tend to be a person who likes to use the big side for when I'm doing figures, and so that's what happens. Now, I could dip into water, but instead I'm going to go ahead and use this guy because I think it's instructive because it's easier for sketching. These guys, if you've ever used them, see, I've got water in there, and I just press it on the sides and it until I see a bead of water has come into it. And now I'm just going to, now I didn't make the beak quite long enough, but I'm just going to go ahead and pull this, and I'm going to go ahead and get this dark right here, right away. Now, when you just concentrate it like that, it really gets dark. Now, for this other part, I'm going to make it a little bit more interesting. There, and keep that nice and concentrated. Dry brush a little bit. Get a little heavier. See how fast that goes?
Hmm.
Now this is where I could leave it like that, if I just want something sketchy, or you can add a little bit of color to it, which I sometimes do just to show you what you can do. So let me go ahead and,
Those pens would be great for travel if you
oh,
carry a little.
they're amazing. But what they're also good for is I don't have to worry about lowering the chroma of my watercolor. I can put this in as it is. And see how it automatically lowers the chroma,
Yeah.
which I think is kind of neat. And that makes your color glow. Now I'm going to go into, I'm thinking more of a cerulean blue because I know that it's going to get grayed down. And I'm just going to go ahead and blend it into that and let it run. And I'm going to avoid my little black area right here. I'm just going to go around it. And then pull a little bit of this down. And then let's, just for the fun of it, let's do a little bit of this back here that got too much blue in my brush. When you have too much blue, you get green, and when you have too much green, you neutralize it with red. I'm deliberately not touching it right there. Gonna neutralize this a little bit. Just adding a little bit of blue. Pretty cool technique, huh?
Yeah,
Mhm.
I like it.
I expect to see all of you trying it out.
Mhm.
Works good for figures too. Now, if I want to, I can just slightly tone this down a little bit further. And then add orange to the beak. But it's sometimes nice to break it up a little bit.
So after that, you've activated that pen with water. Will it reactivate if you do it again
No,
later?
nope,
No. Okay.
not really. Maybe a little bit if there's a part of it that didn't activate. But okay, so anyway, what do you think?
I like it.
Kind of a
Mhm.
cool way to do something. It's a little more painterly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's see how we're doing.
You got 25 minutes unless you want to quit early.
Am I a quitter?
A lot of people are putting in hearts and thumbs up for your demo.
Are they? Great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Let's see. There was something else we were going to talk about. Oh, to make that a little bit longer. Maybe that's too long. Too late. Ah. So this is so different than, if I'm doing a portrait or something, I'd still be working on it.
Okay, here's someone Googled Itoya and Portfolio Photo Marker in particular use archival, safe, acid-free, and light-fast ink
Oh,
designed not to fade. So there you go.
well then let me do, okay, I'll tell you what, with my last time, let me do a turquoise.
Okay,
This is this pencil, by the way, and it's so funny. It just kind of blends in a little bit.
yeah.
Okay, so let's see, what can I do? Let me just look and see what I got here.
That looks great.
Roadrunner.
Oh, Roadrunner, gosh. Roadrunner won't go with, I'll tell you what, have me out there sometime and I'll do Roadrunners with you. We could do a whole workshop on Roadrunners. I think what
So,
I think what I'll do is I'll do this egret on the left, one of these egrets on the left, because it's white. These are different. These are snowy egrets. You can tell by the black bill.
yeah, yeah.
And then as they fly away, they have yellow feet.
So there's a question as to whether the pencil, is it water soluble too?
No, but
It's not.
it blends into water nicely.
Okay.
Let's see. Um, Let me switch back to my Ken lap. And okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take the turquoise now. And then this will be my last one.
Okay.
Let's see. Just do it over here. Actually, I think I'll do the foreground egret. Okay, here goes. Here goes nothing. I'm using the corner of the big side. This is this image is one that I did a long time ago, actually, as a business card for the owner of Rancho La Puerta, Deborah Zake.
Oh,
Okay, I'm just starting with the beak. And the eye sits, let's see, right about there. And there's the auriculars. You remember that means ear area. See, I'm not really that committed yet because I'm just using the side where it's a little bit drier. This goes back just a little bit further than the eye. And then it comes back around like this. And right about here is where it hooks. I'm dropping a plumb line. A lot of it's just visual. This comes up. Okay, and now we have um, one of the things, like when I'm doing portraits, I like to encourage people to, especially if you're doing a 3/4, is to start in the center and work your way out. One of the reasons I do that is because then you're really dealing with shapes rather than things. You just, oh, this shape connects like this, that shape connects like that. And it's all kind of like putting a puzzle together. Okay, now we come in. Now I can kind of try to find the other side. This is really big. He's really flaring out. Egrets are very territorial. Now I'm going to switch sides to the side that has a little more juice in it. See the difference? So this is once I've committed. Okay, now we're coming up to the crown. Just kind of scumble this in a little bit. Really sketching. Probably waiting for me to get to it. Okay, so I'm looking at this little shape in here now. Okay, let's see. Let's see what this baby can do. I'll go ahead and use this pen again. Well, actually, you know what? I think I need a little more control. So I'm going to use water. I have 3 jars of water because I like to have clean water on hand. Okay, here we go. I'm going to mix a little bit of the pink into it in areas. Just to tone it down. See how the ink just it's just so nice the way it flows. I just love that. Let's go ahead and I think I'm going to take something a little bit grayer. Go back in here.
What's the gray color you're using?
It's actually orange that I'm mixing in.
You mean in the background?
Oh, in the background, it was a lilac, kind of a
Oh, okay.
lilac with a little bit of turquoise mixed
Okay.
into it. Let's see if I take a little bit of narrow black. That's probably good enough, huh?
Looks great. Amazing what you can do in a short period of time.
Well, it's fun. I have to say, I'm having a good time.
Good. Well, that's what it should be. Art should be fun.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing about my entire career. When things seem too laborious, I just stop doing them. I
Yep.
don't mean that in a lazy way. I mean in a way that I start to have a sense that it's not something I'm going to want to do for the rest of my life. So anyway,
Looks great.
Thank you.
so I will, are there any questions? Because I'm going to send the materials and I'm going to send the anatomy and the other, um, you know, uh, my life.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be great.
No questions?
Um, they love the demo.
Which one?
Fabulous.
all of it, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Excellent. I can't wait to try it.
So here's what we've done tonight.
Yeah. Did great. I think it was much appreciated. Do you give online classes?
Oh yeah, I actually I do a mentorship through Mastrius, but that's full.
Okay.
I'm just designing a course. I just finished doing a course for Artifacto, which is interesting. It's on expressive watercolor techniques,
Okay.
and yeah. Go ahead.
I just wanted to know if that information was on your website. People can go to your website.
Yeah, they should be able to. The Mastrius thing, if you go to Mastrius, no, not Mastrius, to Artifacto
Okay.
online platform. It's
Yeah.
ARTEFACTO. You'll see it. I mean, there's so many really good painters. I'm kind of happy to be included amongst them who are on their site doing demos. You can learn everything you want to learn off of YouTube. I swear, it's amazing.
Right.
So anyway, there's that, and then I'm in the process of developing a landscape painting class with a company called Red Point that's centered in China.
Okay.
Are
All
these
right.
live? Are they live, Ken? The class?
There's a demo that I did for Artifacto that is live. I'm demonstrating a figure playing cello,
Oh,
and so you can probably find that if you just look up Ken Goldman Artifacto cello player, maybe. I don't know.
I'll check it out.
One
And
warning, once you get involved with them, you're going to get a lot of emails, but you can always delete them.
Mm-hmm.
and Ken's website is Goldman Fine Art, and you'll find that his wife is also an artist, so they
Yeah.
share the website.
Yeah. Yeah, she's a very, very fine artist, and she does mostly figures and works right now in oil. She's done some really beautiful acrylic paintings too, and her watercolors are lovely. They're very deep and thoughtful watercolors. I think you'll enjoy looking at them. And we have been married since 1987, and it just keeps getting better and better.
Thank
Well,
you. Good.
thank
good
you,
demo.
everyone.
I wish I could have seen you all personally, but good night to everyone,
know.
and thank you for watching.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Good night. Thanks, Liz.
See you next month. Next month is going to be Uma Kalkar.